Okay, but did you stop and say, hey, it's me?
No, it's so funny because I hadn't seen them in years. Like, they didn't recognize me. They were like, you are glowing. What's your secret? And I said, honey, I'm healing.
I'm excited.
I am so excited too because I have wanted you to read this book literally for what, like 3-4 months now, and the day has finally come. And yeah, I could not be more excited about this.
As soon as I finished it, I was like, we need to do this ASAP because I am overflowing with thoughts and emotions.
I know. I remember, well, we were originally going to record this tomorrow, and then you're like, do you have time to, like, on Monday? And I was like, yeah. And it worked out because today is Memorial Day, the day that we're recording this.
Oh, that's so special. Like, to be able to be reviewing a book based about how important it is to remember the troops from the Vietnam War. Like, this is really special. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, let's get into this.
Yeah.
So we are reviewing The Women by Kristin Hannah. And this is a brief synopsis that I found online. An intimate portrait of coming of age in a dangerous time and an epic tale of a nation divided. Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frances Frankie McGrath hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is a story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era.
Yeah, that explains it very well.
I need to know what your thoughts. So just word vomit because we've been... I need to hear.
This book made me so angry. I felt so many emotions. I will say the part where I only cried once. That's a lot for that's little for a Kristin Hannah book for me. When she held the baby who had burned in her mother's arms, that I bawled. That was the most touching part of the book for me. But I experienced every emotion. Majority of it was like a lot of anger, but I wouldn't consider that to be I wouldn't consider all the anger or like dislike I had for certain scenarios to be bad, because that's literally how it happened. That's the process of, every time you think she's just like gonna get better, like there's a happier ending, bam, spiral, another one. And then, like, not to mention Rye and Jamie, just it tortured me. And then there were some little things like you can tell Kristin Hannah like did her research and did so much for this book, and then a lot of it I felt like was slapped on. Like when you read a book nowadays, like now set in a modern time, and they mention TikTok and Instagram and all these like, and it's just so cringe. That's how I felt about it when she mentioned every like 70s little thing you can imagine. Like every stereotypical song was on his she would mention the Grateful Dead, the t-shirts, it was like a little too much. I do think she was doing that to like set us in the time period. But I felt like a lot of that was like a little slap. It was a lot of tell, not so much show with that stuff.
I see what you're saying. I don't know if I had that same experience with the songs. I think my mom was in high school around this time, and so I grew up with those songs a lot on the radio or in the car, and I think that for me it helped kind of place me, because a lot of that context was when they were in the officers club and when they were doing those. So I think songs hold a really high memory. It's like there's a part in your brain where your what is it? The place where you process speech or like memory is right next to where, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, it's really strongly associated where you can remember things according to songs. So I think that that's kind of where.
Oh yeah, agreed. Like she was trying to get us into the time frame.
Yeah, and I think that for maybe some of like the older women who read this, they probably are like, oh my gosh, I remember that song playing in this, or it's just something. But I do kind of understand what you're saying, because
that's like saying T Swift was playing in our, a modern book, and to me, I'm just like, I don't know. But it was like, that's where I feel like it was kind of like just slapped on. But I get it. Like, how else could you imagine the 70s? I have no memory of the 70s. I didn't live back then, so.
You were just an egg still.
Still an egg. Oh, reference to previous episodes. But yeah.
Okay, but there was tension.
How about you?
I remember, so I read this book a while ago now, but I remember being really triggered by a lot of the infidelity that comes up, because I was not expecting that. And
me too.
Just with what I'm going through in my personal life, that was really triggering for me. And so I was like, I was not expecting that. And you want to know what? I hated how much I liked Rye. And then he did me dirty. I knew he was a slimy worm of a man from the get-go, right? I knew that. But there was something where I was like, there's just something so endearing about him. Like, he whisked her away to Hawaii. I was like, that's so romantic. And then I'm like, I have never wanted to unalive a fictional character more than I wanted to do that to Rye after how he handled her.
I did not connect to a single one of the men. That's another thing that was so frustrating.
Even Henry?
No, not even Henry. She didn't give them enough character development. She did not give them enough of their, own. She did not give them enough.
Do you think that was intentional so that you
Of course.
Yeah, that you grew to like Ethel and Barb more?
Yes, and so that we wouldn't get attached. And I, like, as soon as I noticed, like, I'm not attaching to these characters, I knew they would be gone. I literally knew what was going to happen. Like, one thing after another. I didn't expect all the spirals, but like with the Jamie thing, I had an idea that he'd come back. With the Rye thing, I knew he was sleazy. With the Henry thing, I knew it wouldn't work. Like, that was a little predictable, and that's kind of what made me mad too, because usually Kristin Hannah, like, has these little moments where she just blows you away, like you didn't know that was happening. So that I felt like was not done her best.
I didn't predict Jamie coming back. I thought for sure that Finley would, though. I thought that it was gonna be like, LOL, JK, Finley's alive. And
I wish,
because when they were talking about that prisoner of war camp, I was so convinced that Finley was gonna come back, and that was going to be the pretty bow on all of her family dynamic trauma. And that's a whole conversation, too.
Oh, my gosh.
But that her family dynamic is so, so sad to me. And, like, the wall.
But that's probably what it was like.
Oh, for sure it was.
It's sad.
For sure it was. Okay, so that brings me into one of the questions that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Clearly, Frankie suffers from PTSD after the war. At that time, there was very little understanding of the effects of PTSD, and both the military and the medical community dismissed the notion that a woman could suffer from the effects of war. Frankie herself believes that she wasn't in combat, was she? How do you define being in combat?
I think she was. Like, they were attacked. She had to go in survival mode. Like, anytime you are put into survival mode, that's going to alter your brain for the future. When something similar happens, you're going to feel like you're in survival mode again. So, yeah. And all the stuff she saw.
I agree. I think that this is where where a lot of people break it down to semantics of, did she actually engage in arm-to-arm combat? No. But she went through all of the stages of experiencing living in a combat zone. She saw death, she saw grief, she saw the effects on both sides of what this was doing. And that was a part of the book that always really got to me, was when they were like, there were no women in Vietnam.
Oh, made me so angry.
I know. I was like, but there were.
And when they kicked her out twice from the VA, or like the second time.
Well, and then you think about, of course she spiraled, because anytime that she tried to have the courage to get help, she was instantly gaslighted of, you weren't a soldier, only men were over there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why I love her relationship with Barb and Ethel as well, because they were aside from her the other medical professionals that were over there with her, they were the only ones who validated her experience.
Yeah. They were good friends. They were my favorite characters.
Yes.
For sure.
For sure. Okay. What do you think was Frankie's darkest moment in the book? What do you think broke Frankie? Was it her service and the horrors she witnessed? Was it PTSD, the miscarriage? Or was it breaking her own moral code, having an affair with a married man? What should Frankie have done when she learned that Rye was alive? Did you see his betrayal coming? Should Frankie have seen it? What were the clues she missed? Do you believe Rye loved her? This is a loaded question because there's like 10 million going on in there. So first, what do you think was her darkest moment in the book? When she hit the bicyclist, I think. Because I think that's when she realized, like, this is, like, I'm out of control. And I think that was like, I think the turning point for her. What
Her
do you
rock
think?
bottom. I'd have to agree.
What do you think broke her? I think overall just being her experience being invalidated, both between the country as a whole and even within her own family system of her dad and even her mom saying, you're not worthy of being on the wall because you didn't fight in Vietnam. But she still was she still experienced bombing and seeing dismembered soldiers come in. And
Yeah, it was all those times that they didn't allow her to share her story and she was forgotten. And I think if that had happened, she probably wouldn't have spiraled the way she did.
Was it in her service and the horrors she witnessed? Was it PTSD, the miscarriage, or was it breaking her own moral code, having an affair with a married man? Let's just skip to that last one there. Which time?
Oh, yeah.
Frankie, girl.
You know, I saw this review and it was so good, and it was like for Frankie being such a like defender of the woman. Which woman? Herself. She was selfish.
She was selfish.
And
She
so
was
were
selfish. Oh, they have to answer for their own sins, but she should have known better, especially because when she first met Jamie at the officers club, at the O Club, I think they called it, Barb and Ethel were literally like, hey girl, he's married. Like, just so you know, these men over here are going to try to get you to
Yes,
cozy
they
up
are.
to cozy up to them, and don't, like, they're all slimy. So just know that. And she was like, but he's different. I can change it. Like,
She
no.
was young.
She was young. She was young. And we all make mistakes. To quote Hannah Montana, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. But
She made him twice.
She did do it twice. At which point I'm just like, now, this isn't part of the question. I don't think that she deserved the ending with Rye that she got.
Oh, of course not. He was so manipulative, and he really made it sound like I had to marry her, because in that time and age, like you had to, like, you were pressured to marry. So I still were pressured in this day and age to marry someone if we got pregnant, So imagine then. And I believed him there for a second, but I was still like, no, like, you wouldn't have run into her arms there in the homecoming. Yeah.
That's a question down further. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I didn't see the betrayal coming. I really did think that he loved her. And that was 100% my own naivete. Naivete.
I didn't.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. And I remember calling oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I remember calling a friend who was reading the book at the same time and just being like, I can't. I was so devastated when Rye just kept coming back for more. Like, he was selfish. Mm-hmm. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. And
he didn't love her. He didn't. She was convenient, because he never went and sought her out after he came home.
True.
It was convenient because he made eye contact, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, she's available now. She sees me. She wants me. I'm going to go after her now. And all of a sudden, I didn't love her. No, where was this from the get-go?
Do you think that do you think that Frankie felt a connection to Rye because he was friends with Finley, and because he was inadvertently a huge reason why she decided to even enlist and go?
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe it was cathartic for her in some way. But didn't her brother tell Rye, like, you're not worthy of my sister, or something along those lines? Yeah.
He wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't. No.
There's something about, and this is not all military men, there's something about military men being overseas, and it was said that there weren't many women there, and it's like all men, so you have your whole brotherhood, and there's only a few girls. Somehow those girls are like glorified, and everybody wants to cheat on their spouse. And that's so common. Not all, because there are some dang good men in the military.
There are honorable men. You want to know what this kind of reminds me of? It's that question, would you rather be alone in the forest with a man or a bear? It's instinctually, men see women as objects of sexual desire and of sexual fulfillment, and I think in a time where an environment where life and death is a breath away, they realize the brevity of life. And that's probably a huge reason too. I think out of that context, would they go out and cheat on their spouse? Probably not.
No, probably not.
But it brings out this, I don't know if this is going to be my last day on earth. And I think that that's what does it.
You're not wrong. I could see that. But once again, I don't think it's all men. I think it exposes the ones whose intentions are not pure and whose hearts aren't pure.
Yeah.
That was sad. I couldn't believe Kristin Hannah put that in the book. Like, oh, that was heartbreaking. But you know what? It's the truth. It's what happens and happened.
I think this was in, I read another book about the Vietnam War. It was called The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And I recommend that book to anybody listening. I read it in high school, but I still think about it. It was so good. And I think about other portrayals of the Vietnam War, specifically in Forrest Gump. But this put an entirely different perspective for me of what life was like over there. And I knew that vets were not well received when they came back, but the way that Kristin Hannah described Frankie coming home and how displaced she felt and how disrespected she was and how invalidated she was, I felt all of those things, especially being a woman. And I can't imagine that. Yeah.
That was tough reading, like imagining that experience. I didn't know most of that. Like I knew that subtly, but like it's not talked about. I literally knew nothing about the Vietnam War until I read this book. I didn't even know why we went. No, I'm sure I did once upon a time, but the amount of wars America has gotten themselves involved into, like, come on.
I think the thing that bothered me the most about that was it's not like the men specifically, it's not like they signed up to go. There was a draft. They had no option. And then to come back and be like spit on for something they had no choice in, disgraceful.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about Frankie as the protagonist? So let's talk about her growth journey from the beginning of the novel to the end.
She was so young and innocent going in, and then, Barb and Ethel kind of took her by the hand and were like, drink up, honey, this is what you need. And I think she learned so quickly how to be an amazing nurse, and she fought her own fears. I actually really liked her character. Like she's resilient. She had her crutches, but she overall became very resilient and strong and brave and courageous for trying to feel the things that are inside of her.
I agree. I think she showed the fact that humans are broken, but she used her brokenness to help the world instead of inviting herself into her own pity party and just drowning in that. There was a quote at the end of the book. As she stood there letting the pain in, remembering the whole of her life, she realized suddenly that she was young, not even 29. She'd made some of the momentous choices in her life before she had any idea of the consequences. I felt very connected to that because I think everyone has made questionable chill. Everybody's made questionable decisions without thinking. I think that's just being young. You don't really think through of what's the long-term impact of doing this. So when she was popping pills or doing dumb things with rye, like literally stalking him and then being upset about the outcome of that. Let's think this through.
Yeah. She was in survival mode the whole time.
Yeah. But that's what she had to be. That's what she had to be.
Yeah. Something interesting that probably won't come up in a discussion question, but I think one thing that Kristin Hannah did very well to, like, this is where I mean by show, not tell, is the cigarettes. That put me in the 70s so well. Like cigarette after cigarette after cigarette, gin martini after this. Like that to me was my show, not the whole like t-shirt with row on it and like just all those little
Black Panther,
like popular
yeah.
things, very popular things. But a cigarette, that's like a very average thing, but it's so connected to the 70s where like you can smoke on an airplane and at a doctor's office. Could you imagine smoking in a doctor's office now? Like those were ways where I was like, oh, she did that so well.
I was going to say, man, I miss smoking cigarettes, but I don't.
Wait, you used to smoke cigarettes?
You didn't know that?
No.
Yes. I was a really heavy smoker from like 18 to 21, and then I vaped for a really long time.
Oh, that's so bad.
I know.
For you.
I know.
What? Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I think if there was a way for there to be a healthy option, I would have done it my whole life. I loved the way that it made me feel. I loved getting in the
edges off.
Yeah. And
wow.
So when you're in the service industry, it's the only acceptable reason to go outside for a length of time. So I would go outside, just rip my vape and then go back in, and like it was the only time that I was like, I can go outside and just take a second. But anyway, that did kind of really help put things into perspective for that. I don't know why, but one thing that really stood out to me was their little beach party.
Oh, I liked that.
I liked that scene a lot.
I connected with Jamie there a little bit.
Yeah. Just finding ways to have fun and disconnect from the chaos and devastation and seeing the beauty of Vietnam. That part, I really did like that part. But
it was kind of hard to imagine how like 1 second there are these major mortar attacks and there's this type of activity, but then we went to a beach party. It's like, aren't you terrified to go to the beach? I would be.
Yeah. Aren't the Viet Cong like everywhere? I don't know. Okay. Last question. After reuniting in the final chapter, where do you think Frankie and Jamie's story goes from here?
Well, I want to hit on Jamie too first. I actually really liked when she asked him, why didn't you come and find me sooner? And he was like, I wasn't ready. Like, to me, that was admirable. And it didn't make up for what he did in Vietnam. But I honor that, like, he righted his wrongs and came back to his wife. And I thought it was interesting how he said ex-wife. But again, it's one of those things too where like I had a feeling he would show up there at the memorial. Like all the military service members reunited, I knew someone would show up. I thought it would be him. At first, remember in the book Joanne with the child? She never said who, like she was a part of the league of like.
Yeah.
I at first thought that was going to be his wife. She'd find out eventually. That would have been cool. So I actually did like the ending there at the end with Jamie because I felt like he did the right thing there. And I think they probably will go through a lot of healing together and grow to connect because of what they went through and be happy together.
I would tend to agree with that. I was not expecting Jamie to come back. But I agree with what you said. I think that he did the right thing in saying, I wanted to make sure that when I did see you next, there wouldn't be another goodbye. Or that there would be this, I would be a better person, more healed. And I could see them having a really great friendship and starting from there, because they're both probably still not in a space where they could like date, or they'll always have the chemistry, but I think that they would start off with a really solid, good friendship and then find the time and space to fall in love there too, because I think that Frankie found a lot of purpose in her place in Montana. Mm-hmm. And when I read that part, I immediately thought of you.
That is such an amazing place to go and be one with the world and heal.
I immediately thought of you because I think around the time that I was reading that was when we were talking about you and Flicka. And I was like, this is Irina. But no,
obsession with Montana.
Rightfully so. It's beautiful. And have you seen Yellowstone?
The show?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay. It's a great show, but I don't know. I think that they would become really good friends and go from there. Mm-hmm. But Frankie still has some evolving in her concept of male relationships, I think, before she can really settle down. And
I think it was a lot of time went by that she's been, and even Henry's come by since, and there was a positive relationship there at her house in Montana. Actually, we need to talk about Henry too, really quick.
Okay.
What was that? Like that. Again, Kristin Hannah did not allow us to attach to him. I don't think. Like she didn't allow us to fall in love with him. I personally did not fall in love with him. I didn't fall in love with any of the men. And when like Rye came back and she basically told him like I still love him, like, and they were just lost their baby. Heartbreaking. He didn't deserve any of that.
No, he didn't. But he handled it really beautifully.
So well.
And I think that that's one of those examples of, I think Henry was way too good for her.
Oh, yeah.
And she knew it. But he still loved her without being in love with her. Mm-hmm. And still, like, even with all of her rehab and all of those things, he really championed for her. And I think that speaks a lot about him and his character. But he was significantly older than she was, too.
Yeah.
Which kind of...
And a doctor in, like, psychology.
Yeah.
That to me was like, why is he with her?
Yeah.
It was strange.
Like,
it was really strange.
He should have had the foresight to kind of maybe see some of those warning signs ahead of time and be like, probably not a great person to involve myself with.
Yeah.
Emotionally, relationally after.
Yeah. That's how I felt.
I wanted to like him, though. I really did.
No.
It
it made it really hard to like the men every time she mentioned the sideburns. I was like, ick.
You don't like fuzzy ear flaps?
No.
No.
Not a fan.
I can't say I am either. That's certainly not a trend that I see coming back.
Please
That
don't.
can stay there. No. Ew. Okay. So, celebrity casting for Frankie, I had Emma Stone. For some reason, I saw Frankie as a redhead with a little bit of spunk. So I thought like 2010 version, like easy A Emma Stone. She's kind of sassy. That's just kind of who I saw. I also thought maybe Saoirse Ronan, but she seems too pretty for Frankie for me. I don't know.
I don't know who that is. I don't know my actors and actresses very well, but I can tell you, like, I imagined like a very, very, very skinny Caucasian, because it said she had a pixie cut too.
Yes.
But I don't know like any actresses with pixie cuts, so it was very hard for me to envision like what she could have looked like. I almost envisioned like a really, really young girl, just almost childish.
Yeah. Well, she was young when she went in.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Jamie, who would you say?
Who I imagined was in Brothers. Do you remember the movie with Jake Gyllenhaal? Brothers. The brother of Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie. It's a phenomenal movie. I forgot what the lead girl is.
Oh, Tobey Maguire?
Tobey Maguire. That's who I imagined as Jamie.
Okay. I said Scott Eastwood.
I love him. Oh my God, I love him. I did not imagine him at all.
I definitely saw Jamie as a brunette, though. I didn't see him as a blonde, and I think Scott Eastwood is a little too blonde. But
Scott Eastwood's too hot for Jamie's character.
I saw Jamie as being a very beautiful man, though.
Oh, I saw him as like a buzz cut boy. I'm sorry. Anytime you're cheating on your spouse, I see you as a as a boy. I don't see you as a man. That's bad. That's not bad. It's just my experience.
I'm obsessed. Okay, who did you see for Rye?
I saw like darker skin, Native American, shaggy black hair, a little bit of Taylor Lautner vibes.
Ooh, okay. I said Glenn Powell. He was I saw Rye as kind of like a tanned, beachy guy with blonde hair that was really slimy. And that Glenn Powell kind of emulates that for me.
Really? Yeah, a little bit. Probably because of that new movie.
Yeah, I think it's like just how he's typecast, but it's this, I don't know. That's who I saw. Who did you see for Henry?
Some man with long hair, like your stereotypical 70s long-haired men.
I'm gonna show you. So mine is a guy from the show Downton Abbey.
I always thought that was called Downtown Abbey.
No. Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. Okay, his name is Matthew Good.
Oh no, that's way more good looking than what I imagined.
That's who I pictured Henry as, except he had like a salt and pepper beard. He definitely had some salt and pepper going on.
I don't know why I didn't picture any of these men attractive. It's probably because I didn't connect to them at all.
I could see that.
I thought Finley was handsome.
Oh yeah, when you have a name like Finley.
I imagine Finley to be handsome.
Yeah, Finley was definitely a ladies' man. He
Cool.
knew how to treat a woman right. Yeah. Who did you see for Ethel?
Honestly, no one. Like I don't know. I imagined Barb.
Okay, I have a very strong one for Barb as well. So
Yeah,
let's just.
but-
I said Madeline Petch for Ethel. She was in Riverdale. I can show you a picture.
Oh, with the red hair. Oh,
Except she's a little too pretty. I don't know why, but
Yeah,
I
I
think kind of
couldn't-
these I think these girls are a lot more, because she was from like a farm in Virginia, wasn't she?
I imagine like tough built, like tough, older, maybe a little bit more country, like just because of her character was so strong and in Vietnam. So I imagine someone not like petite and cutesy, or
I could see that.
a little bit more rough around the edges, but sweet.
Okay, who is your Barb?
I don't know her name, but I imagine the girl with the afro from Orange is the New Black.
So did I! Or no. You're thinking of the crazy one, right?
I think so.
This is
Or no, I don't know. Show me.
this one.
Wait, go down a little bit more. Yeah, that's who I imagined, but with an afro.
Stop!
Yes. That character, she
Yep.
was really easy. Barb was very easy to imagine.
She is probably the only person that I for sure, like, because I went back and forth of who would I, like, what celebrity would I cast as her. Undoubtedly, this Danielle Brooks is her name. She 100%
so
Barb.
funny.
That is so funny.
So funny. Yeah, that's who I immediately thought of.
Who would you put for Mr. McGrath?
Ooh, do you know who I got? What's the movie? He's in a couple military movies. He kind of looks like Brad Pitt. Oh, I think he's the dad in, what's that TV show with Sydney Sweeney? Euphoria? No, what's that TV show?
She's in Euphoria.
Euphoria. He's the dad. Eric Dane is who I imagine.
Oh, okay. He was in Grey's Anatomy.
Yep, him.
Yep.
That's
Okay. I had a very specific actor in mind. I could not tell you what he was in or his name. So this will be one that I'll have to come back on. But for the purpose of answering the question, I put John Hamm.
John Hamm. Oh yeah, that too. I can see him too.
He kind of looks like a meathead, but also could play a very aristocratic character like her dad was. Okay, who did you have for Mrs. McGrath? This one was a pretty distinct one for me. Her name is Marcia Cross, but she played Bree from Desperate Housewives.
So, yeah, something like that. That's pretty much.
That's
But like younger, yeah.
Yeah, like to the age that the character is in the book. Not now, but I could see Marcia Cross
Yeah,
as.
I see that.
Okay, overall, what would you rate this book?
I went back and forth between like 2 stars and 5 stars, but I think it deserves 5 stars. Like you cannot. It's a story about what happened in real life, but overall, 5.
Same.
But not like great alone 5 stars.
No. I love this book probably at the same caliber as I love that book, but they're for very different reasons. And I think that this book is one that I have gone back and thought about several different times. And if a book does that to me where it stays with me, and there was one by it was called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I think I originally had rated that one like 4 stars, but I still think about it to this day, and it's like that's the marker of a 5-star book for me. If I think about it well after the fact that I've read it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those that has stayed with me.
Oh
So
yeah.
for that reason, it's a 5 for me.
Yeah. I rate mine 5s for that same reason too. What other Kristin Hannah books have you read?
I read The Four Winds and The Great Alone.
Okay, so rate those in order. I mean, I think I know what you're going to say, but
I think I would still put Great Alone as number one.
me too.
Just because that so good.
Oh my
so
gosh.
good. And that was a long story. There was a lot of plot development, character development. She took her time and she really really did. Then I would say The Women, and then I would say Four Winds. I still think about Four Winds also. That one was about the Great Depression, and have you read that one?
Yeah, I gave that one
Oh,
3
yeah.
stars though.
Okay, yeah.
I liked it, but towards the end I was over it.
I still think about that one as well, but for ancestral reasons.
Right.
But yeah, you have read a lot more Kristin Hannah books, and I think that might be why maybe you foresaw some of the things that I didn't, because you might be used to her writing style a little bit more. But what's your order?
The Great Alone, The Nightingale, and sometimes The Great Alone and The Nightingale are like
I
on
need to
par
read
for
it.
me. I still think those are better than The Woman. I do. But then The Woman is better in a different way. So they're all just in that 5 category. But then I really loved Homefront. I think, I don't know how much I gave that one. And The Night Road, and then Four Winds.
Okay.
Oh, and Winter Garden. Holy moly. Oh, so good. I think you'd like that. There's some, the Polish in you might like that.
Yes. My mom has recently become obsessed with Kristin Hannah and has purchased probably 7 or 8 Kristin Hannah books.
Oh.
And she's pawning them off on me, which I very willingly receive. So as I read more, I will let you know which ones I'm loving. But have you thought about what our next read is going to be?
I think we should do Remarkably Bright Creatures. I think I've read somewhere along in the synopsis on that's a good mental health one too.
Okay.
I'm
I have
really
wanted to read
interested
that
in
one
reading-
for a while.
Yeah, I'm really interested in reading that. So let's do Remarkably Bright Creatures for June.
Yay, I'm excited.
Me too.
All right. Well, this was so fun. I love doing these.
I know. This is my favorite episode every month. Every 2 months. Every
Yeah.
every
And
two
hey,
that we've done.
let's talk about for a quick second how much better this one went than Frankenstein.
Oh, better content too.
Hey, at least I read this one full way through. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, I can't wait to recap our next book.
Yep. We'll see you
All
guys
right.
then.
Okay, bye.
Bye.